Hey there, ready to dive into something kind of unexpected today.
Oh, yeah. Sounds intriguing. What are we looking at?
So we're talking art and technology, but also the surprisingly creative spark that can come from something like a dead lawnmower.
Really? Now, that's an interesting combo.
Right.
You know what, though? It's actually more common than you might think. Artists often find inspiration in the everyday, transforming like the mundane into something extraordinary.
Exactly. And today we're exploring that through this music video, Song for a Dead Lawnmower, by this Danish artist, Clintus Photo.
I've heard of them. They're known for their unique blend of music visuals, and they even use artificial intelligence in their work.
That's right.
This piece really shows that off.
Yeah, and we're gonna dig into like the artist's process, how they use AI tools like Midjourney and LUMA to create the video, and then ultimately what it all means for, art in the age of technology. We've got some excerpts from the artist's website where they share some behind-the-scenes insights, even a document that outlines the criteria for submitting music videos as art.
I bet that leads to some really interesting questions about what even is art anymore in this context. Like, can a song about a broken lawnmower really be considered art?
Right, and if so, how do we even begin to evaluate it?
Exactly.
That's what we're here to unpack. So before we get into all the details about AI art generation and the evaluation criteria, let's set the stage. I'm sure you've probably had to deal with a lawnmower at some point that just wouldn't start or something.
Oh, yeah, definitely a relatable experience.
So what happens when that frustration becomes the seed of an artistic project?
It is an interesting juxtaposition, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have this everyday annoyance, something that I feel like most of us would rather just avoid, and it's transformed into something creative.
Yeah, and I think what's really fascinating here is how Clintus Photo uses AI to further that exploration.
Yeah, definitely.
So to give you a taste of what we're talking about, let's actually hear a snippet of Song for a Dead Lawnmower. Catch you right. And here's the funny part. The artist wasn't initially sold on the idea. On their website, they mentioned that the band thought it would resonate with people, but they were really hesitant to write lyrics about something so, silly. They even said, more important things are happening to the world than middle-class problems with mechanical garden equipment.
There's that tension again, right? The whole mundane versus profound. This idea that something as, ordinary as a lawnmower just isn't worthy of being considered art. I'm interested in how this internal struggle plays out in the final piece, even without having any lyrics.
That's a really good point. It ended up being an instrumental piece. So it's almost like the lack of lyrics makes the experience even more universal. I mean, we've all been there, right? Wrestling with something that should be simple,
Totally.
but it just
Right.
won't work.
Exactly. It becomes less about the literal lawnmower and more about that shared feeling of just frustration, of things not going as planned.
Right.
And that's where the visuals that were created using these AI tools become so crucial to the artistic expression.
Okay, let's talk about those visuals. They used Midjourney and LUMA, both are AI art generators, to create this video. And they even say on their website that they used the free version of LUMA.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know about you, but when I hear free version, I immediately think watermarks.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point, though.
Yeah.
It leads perfectly into this bigger conversation about artistic value and the role of AI in art.
Yeah.
Does using a free version potentially, with some limitations, does that impact how we view it as art?
Right. Does that make it any less artistic? Especially as we start thinking about those criteria for evaluating music videos as art. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Definitely something to consider.
Right. So let's actually talk about these AI art generators and how they work. I mean, you've probably heard of Midjourney, but maybe not LUMA.
Right.
So for those who aren't as familiar with this technology, how do these programs take an idea, a text prompt, and turn it into something visual?
It really is remarkable. It's like you could type in something like a melancholic sunset over a field of rusted lawnmowers, and the AI just generates an image based on that.
Wow. Melancholic sunset over a field of rusted lawnmowers. That's oddly poetic.
Right.
And I can see how that ties into this whole vibe of the song, even without those lyrics that the artist didn't want to write initially.
Exactly. It really highlights those creative choices involved.
Yeah.
The artist isn't just accepting whatever the AI spits out.
Right.
They're curating it, refining it, guiding the process to match their artistic vision.
So it's a collaboration then, in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where that art part comes in, don't you think?
Totally. It's not just about the technology, but how it's actually used.
Right.
Which brings us back to those criteria for evaluating music videos as art. What does that document actually say?
Well, it emphasizes several things. The interplay of music and visuals, obviously narrative structure, the use of symbolism, and then just the technical execution.
Okay.
For example, it talks about how a successful music video should enhance the emotional impact of the music.
Okay, so in this case with Song for a Dead Lawn Mower, without lyrics, to give us like a concrete story, how does the video amplify the feeling of the song?
Well, from what Clintus Photo describes on their website, the video uses a lot of abstract imagery. There's this sense of movement and decay visuals that evoke, broken machinery, overgrown landscapes, those melancholic sunsets we were just talking about.
Interesting. So even without a traditional storyline, the visuals are working to create an atmosphere, a mood that like complements the music. It's like the AI is helping to visualize those abstract feelings of frustration and maybe even a little bit of absurdity that we associate with a dead lawnmower.
Precisely. And that actually connects to another point that the document makes about the use of symbolism. Even the title itself, Song for a Dead Lawnmower, that functions as a symbol.
Yeah, it definitely evokes a very specific image.
It does.
For me, it's like this lone lawnmower just covered in cobwebs sitting in a neglected backyard. It's almost tragic, but then there's also that like little element of humor in how unexpected it is.
You've hit on something really crucial there, that blend of humor and pathos. You see that a lot in art that deals with the mundane. It's about finding the extraordinary within the ordinary. And humor can be a powerful tool for that. Think about artists like Claes Oldenburg. He took these everyday objects and transformed them into these monumental sculptures. It's playful, but it also makes you see those objects in a completely different way.
That's a great comparison. And it makes me think about how Clintus Photo using AI plays into all of this. AI art generators are still pretty new, and there's this perception that they might make art easier or less skillful. But when you look at the intentionality behind Song for a Dead Lawnmower, you can tell the artist is making very deliberate choices.
Absolutely. And the document even mentions the importance of technical execution. It says that even in a more abstract piece, there needs to be a level of craftsmanship control over the medium. You can see that in how Clintus Photo uses Midjourney and LUMA, even with the limitations of that free version of LUMA.
Right. So maybe those watermarks aren't actually a bad thing. Maybe they're not a detriment to the art at all, but actually like become part of the artistic statement.
Yeah.
A way of acknowledging the process and the tools that were involved in making it.
That's a really interesting perspective. It challenges us to think beyond those traditional ideas of what makes art good. And maybe that rawness, that embrace of the limitations, actually enhances the overall message.
And isn't that what art is all about? Pushing boundaries, starting conversations, making us see the world in new ways?
Exactly. Song for a Dead Lawnmower. With its unique inspiration, its use of technology, and thought-provoking visuals, it checks all the boxes.
It really does. So we've mainly been focusing on how this piece fits into these established criteria for evaluating art.
Right.
But maybe it's also challenging those very criteria, pushing the boundaries of what we even consider to be art in this digital age.
It's that tension again, right?
Yeah.
Tradition versus innovation.
Exactly. With that in mind, I'm curious what you think about this. We've talked about how the artist used AI to visually represent this feeling of a song for a dead lawnmower. But what about the music itself? Do you think there's something inherently more abstract, more open to interpretation about instrumental music, especially when it's paired with a music video?
That's a great question. I think it gets at how we experience different art forms. Without lyrics to give you a concrete narrative, instrumental music tends to evoke a much wider range of emotions and associations.
Yeah.
It becomes a more personal experience for the listener.
It's like the music is a canvas, and then the listener gets to decide what to paint on it with like their own emotions and memories.
Yeah, exactly. And when you combine that with these visuals that are already so abstract and open-ended like we see in Song for a Dead Lawnmower, it creates this really immersive and personalized experience for the viewer.
So it's like that absence of lyrics, something that the artist initially struggled with, actually becomes kind of a strength here because it forces us to engage with the art on this other level and to find our own meaning.
Right. And it reminds us that limitations can often lead to these amazing creative breakthroughs. Sometimes those really profound artistic statements come from embracing the absurdity of everyday life.
Yeah,
Even something as ordinary as, a broken lawnmower.
definitely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Song for a Dead Lawnmower, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will walk away with?
Well, I think this piece does a beautiful job of illustrating the evolving relationship between art and technology. AI tools like Midjourney and LUMA, they're not meant to replace human creativity at all,
Mhm.
but to give us these new ways of expressing ourselves and kind of push the boundaries of what art can be.
Totally. It also really makes you think about how we even evaluate art now in this digital age.
For sure.
Do those old criteria even still matter when we're talking about AI-generated images and instrumental music?
It's an important question.
Yeah. Maybe even more importantly, it reminds us that art should challenge us, make us think critically, and spark those conversations that go beyond just the canvas, or in this case, the screen. Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. As you're going about your day, take a second to think about the mundane things, the things you usually overlook, the little details. Because who knows, maybe within those everyday experiences, you'll find the inspiration for your next creative breakthrough.